Right.
You're watching ICENETPod on ICENET, the Islanders Championship Entertainment Network. And now, the host of ICENETPod, Stevie Nicks.
Oh, we were doing the intro. We were doing the intro with that. You gotta give me a warning, Mike Clark, before you just
Well,
stick the intro in.
you know.
Jumping all over my own intro. Anyway, this is episode 3 of the ICENET pod on ICENET, powered by National Security Brokerage. Hello, everyone. This is Stevie Nicks, Steven Nicoforo, back with you, episode 3. And my producer, Mike Larkin, is with us. And today we have a guest. We have a returning guest from the old show, a wonderful, wonderful Isles blogger and a wonderful podcaster and a friend of the show, Gil Martin. Gil Martin, welcome back, Gil. Thank you so much for coming back.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure talking Islanders hockey with you guys.
Same.
Absolutely. And so when we booked Gil, we were worried at first we might not have anything to talk about. What a difference a couple of days makes with this team. Where should we start? I guess we'll start with the biggest story, I guess, of the past week and a half. And that is, of course, the departure of Lou Lamoriello. The vibe that I got from around Islanders country is that Islander fans are thankful for the years that Lou gave us, but also at the same time, many felt that it was time for him to go. Do you share that sentiment?
I do. I mean, the problem was, in my mind, look, the Islanders went on those runs to the conference final in 2020 and 2021. That's the most playoff success they've had since the dynasty years. But he stuck with this core just a little bit too long. And as they got older and there weren't any, trading away 4 straight first-round draft picks, there weren't prospects coming in to take over and keep the team younger. On my show, the mantra I always had was this team needs to get younger, faster, and more skilled. And it just wasn't happening because Lou, even though they didn't make the playoffs twice in the last 4 years, lost in the first round in the other 2 years, he kept doubling down on the core. And I just think it was time to change that up. And even at the trade deadline this year, where it was a seller's market, he wanted to re-sign both Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, and it just didn't seem to make sense to me based on where the team was at.
And up until very recently, I was hearing that he was still working on giving Palmieri another contract or keeping him on the team for another few years. I don't know how ownership felt about that. I don't know how ownership felt about some of the decisions that he was making later on, but I know that Scott Malkin said, I think it was the second last road trip of the year, and actually said it through Lou that big changes were coming. And then we find out that in those meetings, Lou was informed that one of the changes would be him. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, and it will be interesting to see what the vision is for this team from ownership now that we're into a very crucial offseason, because whoever they hire to fill, remember, there's 2 vacancies that you're filling with Lou Gunn, the president and the GM. And I'm thinking they're going to go with 2 different people. They probably should go with 2 different people for those positions. But the direction that they go in based, with who they hire and based on the vision they have is going to be crucial. And I think that it's going to be a little bit different than whatever vision Lou had. I think that you will see some big changes. Do you think that also? Do you agree with that?
I do. And I think the big first question is Patrick Waugh still the coach when the new GM comes in? Or do you change that also? And does the new GM want to pick his or her own coach?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge. I think personally that Waugh should stay. I think that he's only really had a one full really year to, implement his system, get to know the players a little bit. I thought it would have been very unfair to let him go at this point. I think you give him enough rope to hang himself. If you really want to get rid of him, let him do his own bidding, I guess. But it is going to be interesting to see how that meshes with whoever they bring in. They're going to have to bring in someone who if they are keeping Watt, who kind of, agrees with that vision and agrees with what they want to do moving forward with Watt, if that's really the plan. What do you know about John Collins? A lot of talk now has been made about John Collins. He's supposedly going to be leading these searches for the new personnel. He's the minority owner. There isn't a ton known about him, but the few things that I've heard were good things. He is very good, apparently, at some specific things. What have you heard about John Collins?
Well, I haven't heard a lot either, but I've heard he is well connected around the league. And I think that's important. I mean, if he knows the players, so to speak, and when I say players, the executives, the potential GMs, potential presidents, that's an advantage. So he'll have a good network. He'll have, people he can rely on to help him sort of parse out who he wants. And hopefully he'll be able to find the right person or people to help move this franchise forward.
Yeah, I mean, he is apparently great at seeing, different things in different people and knowing what to bring in for the franchise. He's had success in things like this before, apparently. But he's apparently the guy that's running this search for Malkin. Now, it's interesting. When you're talking about Scott Malkin, he hasn't really been up front or in the spotlight or at least it seems that way when it's come to the decision making of this team. In the past few years, Ledecky has been the face and Malkin's kind of been in the background. But it's been known, right, that Malkin is really the guy pulling the strings. He's the guy really controlling the wallet. And he hasn't really been very vocal up until this, past few weeks about the direction he really wants to take the team in and what he wants to do with the franchise. Do you think that he's been a little bit too complacent recently? Do you think that he probably should have taken more of a hands-on approach with the ownership role?
I don't think that's his style. Like, he doesn't want to get involved in the day-to-day. The only thing I wish he would have done is maybe, I heard rumors, and again, you don't know with these rumors how accurate they are, but I heard there were rumors as early as December that Lou might be let go. And I kind of wish that maybe Malkin was a little more proactive than reactive in that respect. I mean, his MO has tended to be, Ledecky is sort of the face of the ownership group. He's the one shaking hands with fans and being in public. But I just wish Malkin maybe would have acted a little faster and a little more decisively under the circumstances. But here we are. And again, if Collins is going to be now in charge of this search, I don't think he's going to do anything without Malkin's blessing. So, that's how they communicate and how they work together is, I guess, the next question.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like at the end of the day, everything goes through him. More so than Ledecky. It really does seem that way, and that includes everything up and down the line, going all the way from the top general manager positions, all the top front office positions, all the way down to things like the radio. Right? I mean, he even has to sign off on things like that, and that was what a huge debacle, I would say. The radio situation became, especially a day after the Lou news. Just what was your just general reaction when you heard they were letting go of King and Picker and also divorcing from Hofstra Radio?
Yeah, it was two separate issues. I mean, the Hofstra Radio thing didn't necessarily bother me all that much, although I think it's worked for the team over the years. I had no problem with it. But King and Picker, especially Kinger, he has been part of this franchise for almost 3 decades, 2.5 decades. Nobody loves this team and bleeds Islander blue and orange the way that Chris King did. He was a fan even before he was involved in this team. His enthusiasm is just off the charts in a good way. And like, Islander fans relate to him because he's one of them. And losing him and Picker, who is really good at what he does and knows the trivia and the history so well, it's just the wrong message to send right now. And I'll say this: I understand you want to save a couple of dollars with the simulcast, but a radio broadcast and a TV broadcast are two very different animals, and it is not easy to juggle both of those and do it well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm a media guy too, as you are, and I had a lot of reaction to this. It was interesting how passionate the fans got about this topic. I did not think that it seemed almost like they were almost more upset about this than not having a general manager, honestly, which is a little, I mean, Islander fans are always a little bit interesting. They're always a little bit, left of center or whatever you want to call it. But from number one, I do not like either the move away from any type of radio outfit at all. I was vocal about this entire situation on X to the point where people were trying to bite my head off. Here, my thought was, number one, if you're gonna divorce from RHU, you should keep something on the radio side. And I would have actually preferred them to go in the opposite direction and go with an even more legitimate rate. Not that RHU is not legitimate, but being on a college radio station is not the same as being on a regular sponsored terrestrial radio station. And so I felt that with a franchise with some tremendous radio alumni and has always had a very, very solid radio broadcast, for them to completely depart from that was absolutely silly. I mean, when you talk to people about how much it costs to run the radio side, I mean, you're not talking about a ton of money. So when some people say it's a cost-cutting thing, like, is it really though? Is it really that much in the grand scheme of things, especially when you see the money that Malkin and Ledecky have? I mean, I just felt that was silly. And then also, I got my head bitten off a couple of times by the Greg Picker fan club, because people thought that me suggesting that Picker's initial hire was also a symptom of the Islanders not caring about radio. People felt that I was attacking him personally. And I want to clear the air about that while I have the chance, because first of all, I was not saying anything about him personally. All I said was that if you're going to hire an inexperienced guy does not have a large broadcasting resume and does not have pro experience, maybe he wasn't the best hire at the time. And I felt that maybe that was emblematic of the Islanders not caring about radio, which is sad. And I'm not taking any – listen, I've known Greg Picker since he was a teenager. I actually went to sportscasting camp with Greg Picker at Hofstra University many years ago. And everything that they say about him is 100% true. He was a hard worker then. He was a tremendously nice guy then. No one is questioning any of that. I'm not even questioning him as a person. What I'm questioning is his now former employer's decision to bring in a guy like that, when in the past you've had guys like Bobby Nystrom and Jean Potvin being the color analyst on the radio to go along with guys like and even Chris King in that position for a while too. So I felt when you get on RHU and you bring in a guy like that, I think that the writing was already on the wall for this type of a move. I think it's very sad, this type of a move, and I wish Kinger and Picker the best. Actually, Chris King is from me and Mike Larkin's hometown.
There you go.
Believe it or not, and I think he still lives there. So that actually hit home. That hit home for both of us too, because he's an East Islip guy like we are, and I wish both of them the best. They're both fantastic people. I think the Islanders, like you said, should have definitely done better by Chris King at the very least, because he's put decades into this organization. It's not just a couple of years; it's decades. And and no one bleeds orange and blue like him. And I think that the way that we've gotten here and the fact that we are here now is just very, very sad.
It's a shame. And, the thing about the radio team, Kinger and Picker, that's like a connection to the fans. And when the team is struggling, you don't want to lose or jeopardize that connection. To me, it's one of those penny wise, pound foolish kind of moves.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And listen, I'm sure Brendan's going to do a great job, right? I'm sure Brendan Burke will do great doing double duty. But, I always felt simulcasting was for other teams, not like the Islanders, not when you have the legacy like the Islanders have. And this is New York. This is the media capital of the world, and you're going to do a radio silent. We could talk for hours about this. I don't just want to talk about that. But speaking of color analyst, Cal Clutterbuck made it official on his Instagram, his retirement. I don't think anyone is surprised by that because I don't think that Cal was going to have any suitors as far as a comeback anyway. I think that it was pretty clear that he was done, the style of game that he played. But, I mean, heck of a career for Cal Clutterbuck, I would say, no, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many fourth-line players play 1,000 games in their career? A guy, the all-time hits leader in the NHL officially, because they didn't obviously keep those stats prior to, 20 or so years ago. But just a dedicated player, a leader in the locker room. And, Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck, they were called the identity line for a reason. They set the tone for those teams that went on those runs to back-to-back conference finals. So you don't get there without the way Clutterbuck and his line mates set the tone. And I think he did a really nice job on the pre- and post-game shows, considering he didn't have a lot of experience especially. And I wish him all the luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the end of an era, especially with Matt Martin retiring also. I mean, the Islanders are going to have to like we've been talking about, reestablish their identity and really decide what their identity is going to be moving forward. I certainly hope they try to maintain something in that same vein because I think it definitely worked for them. And I think that the fans really like that type of style of play. And it's definitely benefited teams that play that way in the last few years. So whoever they bring in to reconstruct this team in whoever's vision, I hope that it is something similar to that because those guys you look at their fourth line guys and yet the respect that they have around the league, the recognition they have around the league, there are not many third or fourth line, players or lines that can say that. And Cizikas, Martin, Clutterbuck worked together for a very long time too, and they managed to be very effective. I hope that they try to stay in that same vein.
I think one of the things that was missing, and people talk about this year's team, they didn't score enough, and the penalty kill wasn't good, and the power play wasn't good. All true, no arguments there. But physicality was missing, I think, in a certain respect from this team. And like when Mark Gatcomb came up for the last 30 or so games, 33, I think he played, 38, whatever it was, you saw like the fourth line played better because he was out there hitting everything that moved. And he wasn't a dirty player. He's not like Clutterbuck was never a big penalty minutes guy, but you knew if he was on the ice, you're not messing with other players because you had to answer him. And you knew that he was going to forecheck and he was going to throw the body and wear you down. And look, this is not the days of the Broad Street bullies. We're not talking about fights left and right, but physicality is still an important part of hockey. And it's something the Islanders lacked at times this year in a big way.
Yep. I mean, Gatcomb really, really impressed me. Kyle McLean's a similar player. He also has been impressing me in the past few years. I think if you get another guy to play with those guys, could be something. People talk about if they're going to go into a rebuild or a retool and, again, the direction of the team. And they talk about the nucleus. All the talk is about, well, they need a nucleus. You got to build around a nucleus if you're going to, blah, blah, blah. I think that they have the makings already of a pretty good nucleus as it is right now. I mean, but you have a little bit on defense still. Pelech and Pulak are getting older a little bit, but you got Horvat and Barzal. Barzal is going to be healthy, Lord willing, next year and come back, ready to go. Ilya Sorokin is still entering his prime, I would say. And Simon Holmstrom was probably the most improved player this past season by many leaps and bounds, I felt. There are pieces here. So when people talk about, well, they need to rebuild, they need more and this and they need more. Well, you want to build around a nucleus. I think they have a bit of a nucleus now. I think the real concern is the farm system. And though they drafted pretty decently in the last few years, and they do have some pieces. I mean, you can't deny that Bridgeport was one of the worst AHL teams, I think, in AHL history this past season. I mean, that's definitely telling. And I think the real challenge for whoever is brought in here is going to be, how do you replenish the farm system? What do you do with the farm system?
It is definitely an issue. Look, you can't have 36 home games for an AHL team and win 4 of them. That is just not a recipe. And look, in the AHL, it is not all about wins and losses. I get that, but you need to be developing players so that when your prospects go down to Bridgeport, they come out better and ready to play in the NHL. And we just haven't seen. Bridgeport has sort of become a black hole for prospects. Anytime Islander fans get excited about a player that goes down to Bridgeport, they generally fail to develop into the person or the player that they were expecting. And that has to change. And, like I said, winning isn't everything in the AHL, but you can't be dreadfully, historically awful. You could finish in last place, but you can't be so far, like they were like 20 points out of 7th place in the division. You can't be that uncompetitive, and you have to be able to develop players at the AHL level. So that has to change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think they've announced anything officially yet, but I think it's also safe to say that Chris Lamorello will not be back either. Chris was the not only assistant GM, but general manager of Bridgeport. I don't think he's coming back next year. So they might have to get a new GM and new coach too. So the Islanders have a lot of work to do, and I don't remember an offseason in recent memory in recent years where they were all of a sudden at this type of a crossroads where it's like, okay, well, where do we go from here now? What do we do? We've had this whole cycle. We had this nice run, 2 Eastern Conference Finals, had a great first, certainly the most success that I've experienced in my lifetime as an Islander fan these past few years, as woeful as that is. But now they're at, definitely a crossroads. It's where do you go from here? And I think that there are so many, even something like Bridgeport, there are so many questions that need to be answered. And I think that this probably is the first time that Malkin, Ledecky, and now Collins, that ownership is really being challenged in a really, really important way. It's like, okay, fans are saying now, what are you going to do now that you've made these moves and we're at this spot? Is this a type of a judgment off season, or a type of put up or shut up type off season for ownership? Because the ball seems to be squarely in their court now.
It's a crossroads. They're at a crossroads, and which direction are they going to go in? What they decide this offseason is going to change the trajectory of the franchise for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And if you get it wrong, you waste 2 or 3, 4 years, and then you got to start all over again.
Yeah.
If you get it right, I'm not saying the Islanders are going to go from, the 10th worst record in the league this year to President's Trophy winners next year. But you start on a path, you develop your players, you trade off some of the players that are older and maybe starting to decline. You free up some cap space, you bring in younger guys. And in a year or 2 or 3, Yzerman is probably 2 years away. Danny Nelson is a couple of years away. The prospects that you were alluding to with the drafts, mostly were last year and this year. So these are guys who are going to need some time. This is a very critical offseason for this franchise.
Absolutely. You have your hand on the pulse all the time. You're always reading tea leaves. A number of candidates have been floated, nothing official yet for the GM and the president's position. Kevin Weeks is a name that I keep hearing. Is that really possible, do you think, as far as getting Weeks in here as one of those positions?
I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, the question is, would he be the GM? Would he be the president? I think, like you, that there's going to be 2 different people in those roles, but it remains to be seen. But Weeksy knows the NHL. He knows the league inside and out. He's a people person. He's a smart guy. I wouldn't mind seeing Kevin Weeks in one of those two positions at all. I think he'd be a solid candidate. The only thing he lacks is front office experience.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that the connectedness would help. I certainly think that he's going to interview very well. I don't know how seriously they will take him because of his inexperience, but it's interesting because there's no real clear-cut candidate for any of these positions. It's really it's insider guys. It's guys that are coming from other organizations that are maybe looking for a next step. Well, it's interesting. One of the other names that I think that maybe Andrew Gross floated yesterday was the woman Madigan, and I don't know if people were taking that very seriously. I think they saw it as kind of maybe it would be a publicity stunt. Do you think that that's that, or is that maybe is that a serious candidate?
I think there are qualified women out there, and she's one of them. Do I necessarily think she's the favorite right now? No. But it's not a token mention. If they're going to interview her, she's got some kind of a shot at getting the job.
Because I mean, I think a lot of the trepidation from a lot of fans is without that lack of without the direction, with the lack of direction, and without really having any really sense of where you're going from here. The fear is that the bottom will fall out of this, and it will become kind of a Mickey Mouse kind of a thing. And so I think that a lot of fans, when they hear stuff like that, and they hear, getting rid of the radio guys, the fear is that we're going to go back to the 1990s, and this is going to be, we want fish sticks all over again. And I think that's really what this fan base is so up in arms about, is that they can kind of see that if you make a mistake here, you make a couple mistakes here, you don't push the right buttons, you're in a, like we were talking about before, you're back into a losing cycle. And so I think that's where a lot of this uneasiness from the fan base is coming from, is that not necessarily that they don't support ownership, but they're just uncomfortable because they've never been in this spot with these guys before.
Look, this franchise hasn't won a championship now in 42 years. It is more than understandable that fan base is getting impatient. I mean, if you're under 45, you have no recollection of this team, the dynasty years and winning championships. So I get it. And nobody wants to go back to the 90s where Mike Milbury was running this team with a budget of 5 cents. And anytime a player got good, they had to trade him away as soon as his contract was up because ownership wouldn't or couldn't pay him. When they had a fraudulent owner who ended up in jail for fraud, you don't want to be like that again. Yeah. So I totally get it, but I do not think that the current ownership is going to let it slide back to that kind of a situation.
Me neither. And I do. Here's my impression of Malkin, is I do think that he is a results-oriented guy. I think at the end of the day, when he does say something like, big changes are coming this offseason, I think he does mean it. And I don't think that there will be any type of status quo. But, it's New York, so it's put up or shut up, right? You want to put your money where your mouth is, you're going to have to do it. These fans are not, these are not other markets. I think that's kind of another one of the recurring themes here is when you play in New York, doesn't matter what sport, the standards are a little bit different. The fans expect a little bit more. And I think that combined with the uncertainty and the quietness from ownership up until this point creates a situation where Islander fans are like, I hope they don't screw this up. I don't want them to screw this up. So I kind of get it. And I kind of see where, like, this is a very important offseason for them. And I don't know what else to say at this point, except we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, the next few weeks are going to be very telling. You want to make a decision soon. You want to make sure your GM is in place well before the draft, well before free agents have to be re-signed. So I would expect within the next 2 to 3 weeks at most, we'll have some news coming down about who the next GM is going to be, and then what happens shortly after that to Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a different situation to be in for this team. Um, what have you been doing? What have you got going on lately that we can plug in and talk about for a little bit? I know you're still doing the podcast, which has been fantastic. What else is going on?
That's the main thing as far as the Islanders go. Hosting the Locked On Islanders podcast. We got new shows Monday through Friday, and even during the offseason, we're going full bore. I'm going to review the roster player by player. We're talking about the GM search and the future of Patrick Waugh, and where this franchise goes from here. So I love it. I love talking Islanders. It's always fun. So it's on YouTube. It's wherever you listen to podcasts. And please like, subscribe, and reach out, because I will answer every comment on YouTube. And just I love interacting with Islander fans.
I will say Gil is one of the most engaging and one of the most friendliest, and always there to talk, and always, like I said, finger on the pulse. This guy right here.
Thank you.
I guess that's we've covered it all at this point. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where this team goes from here, and I know you'll be here for all of it. We'll be here for all of it. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Gil, thank you so much for coming on again. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Anytime I can do it, guys, I will.
Absolutely. And I think the last thing I will add before we go to the outro, folks, like we mentioned, the links will be in the description below this live. It's all about being the best representation of your presentation. And to add on what this one here said, Gil, you always apply your craft in amazing fashion, give great analyze, section and deciphering of the sport. And it's always great to listen. I do subscribe as much as he does, and it's very much appreciative. Y'all check out Gil, check out this fine podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Gil. Appreciate it.
ICENET. Dynasties live here.